Hello and welcome to Golden Touch Music Academy. My name is Jerry and I'll be your instructor in this introductory course to vocal harmony, or you might want to call it how to harmonize a song. This will be a very basic beginner step-by-step guide on how to get into the world of writing out vocal harmonies for your personally composed songs, or probably you're trying to score an original by some other artist for your vocal team, for your choir, or even for your personal use. You might want to, out of creativity, by scoring other people's song, you get to analyze the details of how their vocal harmony flows, the ups and downs, where they made use of certain embellishments or where they made use of various musical elements to bring out the beauty of that particular vocal harmony. So it is a very important course. If you're a musician, if you're a vocalist, you need to know how to harmonize a song, because vocal harmony is intertwined with the chord progression of songs. Now, every song that you hear, every song that you play, the harmony, the soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, if it's a song that has 4-part vocal harmony, is built upon the chord structure. It's built upon the chord progression of that song. Now, what do we mean by chord structure or chord progression? This is the chord formation or the various chords that is used by the organist or the pianist or the keyboardist or the guitarist to play that song. Okay, now take for example a very simple song such as Waymaker by Sinach. For the most part, you can sing that song in 3 chords if you are a musician and know how to play the chords of a song. Now, if you want to extend it a little bit, you can add 1 additional chord. Now, using what we call Nashville numbering system, this is a system whereby we represent each chord or each degree of scale of musical notes with a number. For example, you're very familiar with the concept called tonic solfa, which is built on the major scale in music, which is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Now, I'm going to play it on the piano shortly, but I want to quickly explain the concept of the Nashville numbering system so that we can all be on the same page here. Now, the major scale in music has a couple of ways that you can represent it through the musical instruments or by using your voice. Now, if you look at the piano on the screen, let's play the major scale quickly. I'll start on the middle C, which is the C located around the middle of your piano if you are beside a keyboard, but if you're not beside a keyboard, no problem, just follow the one on the screen. Okay, so the major scale or the diatonic scale goes like this. Now, you see that we started from C, ended at an octave on C, and then moved in a descending order and came back to C again. Now, if you look at the letter names being displayed on the piano roll on the screen, you will notice that we are making use of 7 of the English alphabets: C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then there is a repetition of the initial note C. The C is repeated to form an octave. Now let's move backwards. C, B, A, G, F, E, D, and then back to C. All right. Now, each of these 7 letter names of the musical notes can be given a corresponding number, which sounds as an equivalent when you are trying to form chords, or even just for the purpose of another way of representing the major scale. So this becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Remember, 8 is just simply the repetition of our initial 1. So let's move back. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So, based on this principle, if I say play chord 1, I'm simply referring to the very first chord of the key of C. If I say play chord 2, then I'm referring to the minor chord of D, which is built upon the D note, which is the second degree of scale, okay? Now if I say chord 3, E minor, chord 4, the key of F. Now this is all built centered around our tonic. Remember, we started from the key of C, so key C becomes our tonic in this case. C becomes our starting point. It is the key on which we are trying to build a harmony right now. We are trying to build a song, okay? Now let's keep moving forward. The next is G. G becomes our chord 5, okay? Next, A minor. A minor becomes our chord 6 within the family of key C, all right? Then the second to the last, B diminished. Now, because this is not a piano tutorial, I'm not going to cover the details of how a diminished chord is being formed or what it means, but just try to understand that a diminished chord is one of the chords built on minor thirds, and it's part of the chord formations used in music. Especially if you're playing the major scale, you will always come across a diminished chord as the second to the last chord you will play if you are playing the chords in triads. Triads means 3. So remember, as I was playing 1, 2, 3, there are 3 notes, okay? So that is a triad. Feel free to check out my piano keyboard tutorial if you're interested in knowing more about chord nomenclature and how to get to play the piano itself. But I am using this basic foundation to help us understand the theory behind vocal harmony. Earlier on, I mentioned that the vocal harmony of a song is built upon the chords that are used by the musicians to play that song. Now, I will prove that to you using the concept of the major scale that we just learned how to play on the piano. Now, if you look at the upper left section of the screen, you will see a grand staff called manuscript view. Don't worry, I'm not going to be teaching you how to sight read, but this is an important factor in understanding how vocal harmony works. So bear with me for a moment. All of this will soon come together and make sense to you. Let me mention at this point that this very course is focused on helping you learn how to harmonize songs or how to analyze vocal harmony in a given song by the ears, by just listening, hearing it, and understanding it. But you become better at it if you already have some rudiments or some solid foundation of the theory behind the music and how chords are formed, also, which directly relates to how vocal harmony is formed. Okay, now if you look at that upper left hand side of the screen, you'll see the grand staff. You'll see what we refer to as the treble clef and the bass clef. The treble clef is the upper side, okay? Now, all these exercises, this particular exercise is going to be on the key of C. We have the treble clef at the upper part and the bass clef at the lower part. Now, when we are writing music, the treble clef most of the time carries the vocal parts or the harmony parts for soprano and alto, okay? So soprano carries the highest voice part or the highest vocal part on the staff, followed by alto, followed by tenor, and then the lowest on the bass clef is the bass. All right, now take for example, looking at the screen, if we have something like this, let me go an octave higher. If we have something like this, so see this as your soprano, alto, tenor, bass. Now, if we want to spread it across so that it will fit into both the treble and the bass clef, it will be something like this. Okay, Now, because the octave sounds too much apart, the bass and the tenor are singing on very low octaves, and the soprano and alto are singing on a higher octave, I will like to close the gap. So I'll move it a bit lower so that we'll have a formation that looks like this: soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. Okay? Now, if all these voice parts try to play the major scale, look at how it's going to rise up on the staff notation. You see that? So the soprano always carries the highest note, the highest pitch, the highest vocal part. You may want to refer to soprano as treble. Either one is fine. All right. We're not trying to analyze the difference between the vocal texture of a soprano and a treble. So, but whether you call it soprano or treble, it's fine at this point. Okay. So soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. Again, soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. Okay. So the same way that it is found on the piano, on any musical instrument that has a given pitch, okay, that can spell out individual musical pitches, whenever the highest note is played, that is given to the soprano in composition, in music composition, followed by the altos, followed by the tenors, lower range, followed by the bass. The bass are always the deepest ones. Remember, altos will never go above sopranos. Sopranos will never sing below what the altos are singing. All right? So even when the swapping of vocal parts happen in music, in a given piece of music, and we'll soon come across an example of that shortly, when a swapping of part happens or a modulation happens, the sopranos will still take the higher vocal part in that piece of music, because the sopranos have a wider range, vocal range. Okay, the sopranos are able to hit higher pitches compared to the altos. If you give the altos a piece of music that's written for sopranos, they're going to struggle with it. It's not going to be comfortable for them. Okay, except if the person is a natural soprano who can also sing alto, or a natural alto singer whose vocal range extends into the soprano register. That's fine. They'll be able to hit those notes. But the standard is that you don't give a part mezzo soprano to alto to sing. Once alto crosses over and begins to sing soprano, sing higher than what a soprano is supposed to sing, then something is fundamentally wrong with that vocal arrangement. All right. Now the same goes for tenors and bass. If you give a tenor a bass voice part to sing, a tenor is going to struggle with that because they don't have the depth. Their vocal range is not as deep as that of a natural bass singer. Okay. Likewise, if you give a bass singer a tenor voice part to sing, he might struggle with it if his vocal range does not extend high enough into the tenor registry. Okay. Now there are a few basses that can sing up to the tenor registry, good and fine. Some people have up to 5 or even 6 vocal ranges, so they can sing all the 4 voice parts. As we progress in this course, we will be looking in depth at the vocal harmony of 2 songs. One very simple song of just 3 chords, and then another complex one. But before we get there, let's walk through a simple harmony exercise on the piano.